coming. I know there's a lot going on out there, and I know it's hard to make time to get in here with me, so I appreciate you guys coming. Tonight, we have Ms. Cindy with us from Kent Stark. She is going to walk through the College 101 portion of our program, which is basically, getting ready to apply, applying, some, you're going to touch on a little bit of scholarship information, but first studying later, correct? So she's going to walk through the first part of the evening, and then our financial aid representative will all get started probably around 6:15 or so, and that will walk you through the FAFSA and applying for that, scholarships and all of that good stuff. And Mr. Whiteman will probably pop in a little bit in between those and we get some Sandy Valley specific information on scholarships and when we can run all of that. So that's just kind of the overview of the night. Before we get started, we gave this to your wonderful seniors last week, but I know sometimes papers don't always make it home to mom and dad, believe it or not. I'll just taste it. That's true, we haven't made enough to drink yet, so yeah, just take what you need. This is just kind of some senior stuff from the counseling office perspective, things that we like to outline for them, things that are important as you go through senior year. Okay, yeah, take it on. Oh, they came prepared. Look at this. Bonus points. Yeah, senior stuff. We have very, very fancy names. So, again, your children got that last week, and we kind of went over all that with them. We did give them a copy of their transcript at that time, too. So, just to kind of double check, because you never know, something may have been left off, something might be there that should not be there. Maybe just check with them and make sure that they have seen that, and that everything looks correct as far as they're concerned. So, okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Cindy. I'll let her get going with the College 101 information. Okay.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Cindy Day. I'm an admissions counselor at Kent State University at Stark. And so my presentation today is just getting started as far as starting with the college process or application process. I know some of you have mentioned that you've already started the application process, which is great, but I'm hoping to kind of give you a general overview, just admissions in general. Even though I'm a representative from Kent State University at Stark, it doesn't mean that this information does not apply to any other universities, because I can answer as much as I can. But if you have more information that you want regarding Kent State Stark, and I'll probably give you a little bit of tidbits as we go along. With our admission process, feel free to chime in, ask questions. I'm open, during the presentation, or if you want to hold your questions to the end, that's up to you. But I'm very, chill when it comes to all of these, so feel free to chime in whenever you want. Okay. So I guess my quick question, just so I can have a better idea of who's all in the room. How many of you all are actually students here? 2, 3. Okay. So everyone else is a guardian of some capacity. Is that correct? Great. So as far as getting started, I know, and actually, quick question about the senior, are we seniors in the room? Just out of curiosity, perfect, that makes it a lot easier. So at least as far as getting started, I don't know how much of you have started already, so hopefully maybe this will be the beginning of your journey, or maybe you're at least part of the journey so far. And so the biggest decision where a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I need to choose a major, I need to figure out my career, I need to do what I need to do, but that's not necessarily the case. But I want you to start thinking about, as college is approaching, what is that big decision that you need to make? Is it, oh, I'm going to college and I need to make that major decision? Or is that big decision just knowing that you might be living independently? Just some things to think about. And I know that the college process can be very overwhelming sometimes, but just so you know, this is a great time to start thinking about, what that big decision is, and to, come to an idea of, what universities might you be looking at. It could be us at Kent State University at Stark. So maybe you haven't thought about, oh, maybe I want to pick a particular location where I want to kind of stay local in the area, which is nice because we're in North Canton, which is 20 minutes away, which is wonderful. Or maybe some of you want to be like, I want to go out west. I want to figure out what California life is. And I've got many answers on that, and I'll tell them as much as I can because I've only been to California once. But, it's one of those things where you have to think about, what are some life changes that are happening? Because yes, you are seniors, and yes, it is happening so quickly right now, but those big decisions will come very quickly, and I want you to start at least thinking about it. Just so you know, it's not, I don't want you to make this feel like it's an overwhelming experience. I or is college, something that can think about down the road? But I want you to really think about, since most of you are here and invested to want to go to college, invest in yourself and think about what kind of degree programs that you may want to be a part of. So what's nice about a bachelor's degree program compared to other universities or maybe colleges that you've met, a bachelor's degree can offer you lots of opportunities. And so when I say, that bachelor's degree will get you that career. So say for example, if you want to be in nursing, and nursing is something that where it's starting to grow, where a lot of the nursing opportunities are starting to require a bachelor's degree in order for you to actually start in your career. There are opportunities now where you can get an associate's degree for your RN specifically to be a registered nurse, but you have to start thinking about, what is that career path I'm looking for? What does it mean? And how much of the pay will I get? And I know sometimes people say like, oh, the pay, maybe it's not something in my mind right now, and I just want to be in a fit in a certain area where I can be like, okay, this is the decision I want to make. But I also want to think about, if you want to get that bachelor's degree, there's that opportunity where it opens many doors, opens many opportunities to earn more money at the very end, depending on what you want to do. So, self-sustainability, and then, at the end of the day, when you earn a bachelor's degree, or even if you decide to pursue a master's degree eventually down the road, there are more opportunities to earn more money so that you feel like you are helping your future and what you want to do to that capacity. And that's just, a quick little infographic of what kind of, typically how much money for, in that starting range for a lot of entry levels, and then where it can increase from there. So with a bachelor's degree, there are lifelong benefits, but also just going to college, there are opportunities to really know yourself. Discovering yourself is a big part of your big decision making as part of it. And I'll give you, tidbits about my experience, so maybe perhaps, you can take away with it hopefully, or maybe you'll find something else as part of it. But when you go to college, a lot of changes happen. So if, for example, if you go to a university, such as our campus, where you may be rooming with a roommate, this is the first time you're rooming with such a stranger and you don't really know who it is or what that might be, but you might make lifelong friends coming out of it. Other things as well as just like really understanding what it's to be independent. So I was an only child growing up, and so I didn't really have siblings around. I had a lot of friends around, but I only knew people that were from the area. When I came to campus and I had to learn, opportunities where I had to meet new people, it can be kind of scary sometimes. But at the end of the day, you're going to meet those new people that will, be your friends for the lifelong run as part of your experience. Another thing is you're also figuring out what may be kind of the best fit for you. So I initially started as a journalism major when I first came to the K campus a long time ago. And I found people at the same time, but then I realized, oh, maybe public relations is something that I want to do for the rest of my life. And I was kind of wondering between do I want to be a reporter all my life? No, that's not what I want to do. Do I want to learn a little bit about business? Oh, this business class I have to take. Great, let's take a look into that and what that might look like. And so as you go along the college path, you start to take classes, you start to realize, okay, might be something I might be interested in. Or maybe there's something that you met along the way, like I met lots of people along my time to realize, oh, maybe this is something that I want to do. Fast forward, a few years later, I graduated, and then I started pursuing the degree path that I want. And sometimes it came out really great, and sometimes it didn't come out as the way that I wanted it to be. As in, maybe this is overworking me, maybe this is something that I'm not interested in anymore. But I attribute to a lot of my experiences and what I've learned in college to realize maybe it's time to go back. And so I came back and went for my master's degree, finished this past May, and so I realized during that time a sense of who I was and what I wanted to do. It took some time, yes, but even though during your 4 years as a college student, that's also your time to really explore who you are. Right now you might not figure that out, but maybe you do know a little bit about yourself. But what's nice about living in you get that kind of sense of understanding of what you want and what you want to do with your life. Broadening your mind and thinking globally as 101. So what's nice about at a lot of universities is that there's an opportunity to study abroad. So what that means is basically the opportunity to take classes overseas as part of your, in addition to your career path. Some capacity, it might prolong your degree path, but all other times it could be as a part of your degree path and allow you to explore globally and think beyond what is over here at your school. And maybe you haven't traveled abroad, and there's an opportunity to learn from different countries and understand their political standpoints, or understand, how this applies to if I were to get a job abroad. And a lot of people don't think about that. Like, you don't have to stay in the States to get a job. It's a good opportunity. Establishing relations, connections, and just basically building your future. Like I had mentioned before, I've met so many people along the way. And it's not just, college students that are just doing X, Y, and Z just to get through kind of what you do in high school, but you meet a lot of people along the way, such as your academic advisors, who are kind of the people that help schedule your classes, but they also get to learn you and what you want to do. In addition to that, you might meet some professionals along the way that might be alumni from your group. And so that's also another thing to consider as part of the college experience, because you really get a whole bang for your buck, I personally think. As far as resources, opportunities, there's a lot that comes with college. When you think about that college process and when you're starting to look at different universities, I highly encourage you to think, what study abroad opportunities that I had mentioned that will kind of help you kind of engage your career in the future. Careers and internships, there's always universities that offer career services that help guide you along the way and try to figure out what are those people that help you connect to where I want to be in the next 5 years. Student organizations, student employment research opportunities, which is going to clubs, or building your own club, trying to explore what you want to do, and trying to kind of broaden your experience so that you have that portfolio at the end, so you can ensure that opportunity. So when you're also thinking about college, the one biggest thing I always tell students is determine your fit. And what I mean by that is not every college is a one-size-fits-all. Everything is very different in how you want to explore. And so, for example, going back to my point before, if you don't want to be location bound, you want to explore out, at least you have an idea that you want to go beyond your scope of just this part of the region. Public and private institutions. So there's a difference between public and private institutions. So for example, Kent State University is a public 4-year public institution. And so we are basically a state-granted university, whereas as private institutions, you have your Malone University, you have your Walsh Universities, Case Western Reserve University, those bigger schools. You're really trying to understand what is my fit in those schools. Okay, so maybe a private institution, they may have that big name, they may have that big association, but what does that mean to me? So I encourage you, and I'm getting ahead of myself, is that when you do college visits, or when you do speak with someone like myself in front of a room trying to figure out, what is that fit for you? I always say, your intuition is probably more and better than what everything else is telling you. Because it may sound really cool at first, but then until your gut feeling and you're saying oh my gosh, I feel like I belong here, that's where that life-changing experience comes from, and that's probably something that you should really consider. Another thing I want to touch on with public and private institutions, the cost of tuition is very different, which we will touch on a little bit later, and also with the financial ignite if you're hoping to stay for that. But private institutions, significantly higher versus your public institutions. And then you also have to consider the cost of room and board. So that's just another thing, to think about as you're trying to figure out the college planning process. When it comes to technical or trade schools, if you're someone that just wants to go straight into the career force, get your associate's degree, and just kind of work on the ground running, great. If you figure that out, and I encourage you, go for it. Because at the end of the day, yes, I want to encourage, personally for myself, bachelor's degree is, a great opportunity to go. But if you know intuitively that you just want to get that associate's degree and it makes sense for the career that you want, or maybe you made a connection somewhere that they just need an associate's degree to kind of do what you need to do it. It's your journey, it's your path. No one's telling you otherwise, because at the end of the day, this is your decision on what you want to do to kind of pursue your future career. Community colleges, for-profit institutions, those options are out there. Kent State being the public, the Ohio State being your Mount Union, DeVry University is your for-profit institution, your Cuyahoga Community College is your community college. So there are lots of options out there. And what's nice being in Northeast Ohio is that everyone here is in kind of the home of a lot of colleges around here. So you have many options out here, especially if you want to stay local. But if you want to go somewhere else, these considerations are good options to think about as you go along. So as far as planning for you all seniors in the room, have your your colleges narrow down about, well, this is like your August, October time. So obviously we're in October right now, so don't panic. Don't feel like you haven't made a decision yet, because you don't need to until you've looked at your options and you have visited those campuses. So for example, if you're looking at our Kent State University at Start campus, we're open enrollment, so you can apply till probably the week before classes start, which is really nice, and it gives you the breathing room. But I also want you to consider, you know, if you're staying for the financial aid night, how that might affect your financial aid as you get closer to those application deadlines. Revisiting campuses, gather updated materials. So as far as revisiting or visiting itself, I encourage you to take the time to visit campuses. So say for example, you want to visit our campus. It's right down the road. All you have to do is just give us a call, you know, put your name in, and we'll make sure that you get to visit the campus. And that goes back to my point about, okay, well, as I explore and visit the tour, you know, maybe there's a student ambassador I get to talk to learn about the student experience. Or maybe there is an academic advisor or a faculty member that I run into along the way to ask those certain questions. A lot of universities, and I encourage you to start looking at it if it's, you know, obviously not our campus, but it's other campuses or even other universities, they offer campus preview days. So those campus preview days are just an opportunity for you to literally come on campus, get a tour of the place, actually meet with faculty, actually meet with other students, and really kind of get a breakdown of what the college experience is like there. Those dates should already be out now. Our date, if you're interested at Kent State University at Start, is Saturday, October 26th. It starts 8 o'clock in the morning, bright and early. But we're there to serve you to the capacity that everything that you need to know. And then also for other campus previews, I don't know about other institutions, but our particular institution, we'll have an application station at the very end. So that will give you the opportunity to start applying, because our applications are open for fall 2020 currently right now. And then we'll waive your $40 application fee, which is really nice, because if you are doing the Common App, you might have to pay a fee for that, or you're having to do applications at other universities where they only require you to pay the fee. So if you're in financial need and that $40 is going to be a burden, I encourage you to go to our campus preview night to have that option. And also, like, applications are out for the majority of a lot of universities, so it doesn't hurt to put an application in. An application doesn't say, I've committed to this university. It doesn't. It just means that you're very interested. It's other materials that you need to attach to your application to see whether you've been accepted or not in order to move on. So I also want you to think about that as well. Begin admission application, that's what I just mentioned. Start completing scholarship application. So like I said, I touched on that. So I'm going to expand a little bit, but I'll try to keep it short so I can leave our financial aid representative to talk a little bit more on that. So basically with scholarships, and I cannot emphasize this more, please take advantage of scholarship opportunities. They are often left untouched, and it's not just our university, it's everywhere. And so when there's millions and millions of dollars of scholarships that are offered either at your work, either at your school here, she just mentioned a lot of scholarships earlier that are offered. Your county might offer scholarships. The university that you're applying to might even offer a scholarship on a first come, first served basis, as long as you put that application in early. Our university does that as well, which is why I always encourage applications now, that'd be great. But they often get left untouched. And so for example, which happens all the time, is that we'll have a scholarship out there and it's been around for a long time, and the deadline is X, Y, and Z. But then the students see, oh my gosh, I have to write an essay. What does that even mean? Why do I have to do this? It's so much work, I'm not gonna do it. So at the end of the day, when we review these scholarships and we see only 2 people apply, just think about that. If you had put in your application in for this particular scholarship, you're only competing with 2 other people. And a lot of the scholarship is based on financial need, a lot of them based also on qualifications. Sometimes there are even essays about, like, what's your favorite ice cream? Tell me more about that, you know? Like, people don't see the benefits sometimes because it takes so much longer to write an essay. But if you just put in just that 1 paragraph essay that may be just required of that scholarship, more than likely you will get that scholarship. So when it comes to actually understanding tuition prices, and more will go along with that as well, but with our campus at Kent State University at Start, we're $6,300 a year. $6,300 a year compared to your private colleges that may be $30,000 a year, $50,000 a year, maybe even 20, who knows? It's a lot. And so when you add times that by 4 because the average is about 45 years within the college span lifetime. Ours is 6,300 times 4, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm going to say 27,000 if that sounds right. It could be a little bit more, but regardless, that's 4 years versus that being 1 year at a private college or even at a huge The Ohio State University. So I want you to think about that. And when you're just applying for scholarships, whether it be $500, $1,000, maybe $2,000 sometimes, and then you get your federal Pell Grant, which is also based on need, but it's also very based now. That basically covers the cost of tuition at least at our campus. And then other campuses, it might only just cover just a portion of your first year. I really want you to think about that. And if you want to learn more, our financial aid will go a little bit deeper on what that breakdown cost will look like. But I want you to think about, as you're going through this application process and you're visiting these colleges and you're figuring out how much the cost of tuition is, how much would that mean to me and my benefit, and my experiences, and what I want to get out of, while also knowing that I won't have that burden at the end. It's something to consider as part of that thinking process. Know the early application deadlines. Like I said, I always encourage applications now if you can. Obviously, there's no commitment to it. And early application sometimes gets that early decision into scholarships as well. So that's also a nice benefit to that. And for seniors out there, if you want to follow social media, you never know when there are opportunities that may come up that may be helpful for you. This news will be distributed that way. And as far as already October 1st having happened, FAFSA should already be out for this fall 2020, fall 2021 year. So I highly encourage you to get that done now if you can. If you have any certain questions and you know you're going to this particular university, a financial aid representative will be happy to walk you through the FAFSA process because I know it can be very confusing. If you plan on staying for our financial aid, Andrea from our office, she's a phenomenal person and she'll be able to help you walk you through the process as well. And then you have your February deadlines for most scholarships. Like I said, fill out scholarships now. I always tell students that if they can fill out scholarships now and then also during winter break, because that's a great time to actually get started with scholarships because that's when a lot of scholarships disperse. Even if you're just having the check and you're only, planning to go maybe the following year, maybe it's not this upcoming year, at least you'll have that check knowing that you can apply that to your account. And then spring is when, generally speaking, you can make final decisions. A lot of students get their acceptance letters by then. So say, for example, you put all your applications in before the winter break, everything is great. And then by the time you'll get an acceptance letter from a lot of universities, and hopefully by that time you'll also know how much financial need that you need from your filling out your FAFSA, or even just the federal Pell Grant that you might get that you don't have to pay back as part of when you fill out your FAFSA process. If you're looking to be a part of a university that has room and board, so say for example, you're coming to our Kent campus specifically, they have room and board, you'll at least have a better idea of when you can start applying and get your rooming selections and housing all settled in, as well as any other institutions that are offering a housing option. Registering for classes and orientation. So a lot of that happens during the spring, so I would just keep an eye out. I know senior year can be very stressful sometimes, and maybe it might not be stressful for some people, but I know that my senior year in high school, I was really stressful just trying to figure out and making sure I keep connections with my friends while also trying to finish out my school year strong. Like if you continue checking your email when you get that acceptance letter, you'll have an account by then, and that's when classes will start registering. And like I said, that spring goes by real fast, so just keep an eye out for those. And then as far as enrollment fees, when it comes to those tuition costs and everything, that will come as they go. At least for our particular campus, I know that comes around as early as the summer. So just give it some time, but at least you'll have a better idea of when this will all come around for whatever university that you choose to apply. So, kind of touching a little bit on this, the financial aid investment, a little bit more on that. I know for a lot of people, overcoming financial barriers can be a lot. So, especially with the FAFSA, which I emphasize, it can be very confusing. So, hopefully you'll stay for the financial aid night. Be informed of your options. That's why I kept emphasizing scholarships, because those will always help. But also know where your financial need and where that can apply to your tuition costs. Educate educate yourself, seniors, and then also your parents. You know, at the end of the day, because you'll be graduating as seniors, you are going to be adults. Eventually, you're going to have to do this for the next 40 years of your life of really just trying to figure out, how do I sustain myself financially? So really think about that as well. Ask questions, meet with financial aid offices. Andrea, who's walking down right now from our Kent State University Stark campus, is our representative who will be talking tonight a little bit more on that. But they are your resources. They know the ins and outs of how to help you get the best and the most out of your financial need in order for you to pay for college. Apply, 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 and don't miss important deadlines. And I want to keep emphasizing deadlines because deadlines come up really quick, and especially now that we're halfway through the fall semester, you never know what's going to happen. So when you take a look at all the universities you are, just please know your deadline so that you don't miss that mark and then you miss the opportunities that may come. So I'm going to skip through this because I know that our financial aid officer is going to talk a little bit more about that. I did talk about scholarships. Ooh, if anyone wants to take a picture of that, online scholarship searches, those are great resources to look up for outside scholarships. You can always look, if you are committed to Kent State University or any other university, you can always look at their scholarship search engine because that's always available for you to take a look at. Oh, there's so many people taking pictures. Another thing I had mentioned earlier, parents in the room, please check with your employers to see if there are scholarship opportunities for your students. You never know, they don't always emphasize it, but sometimes you never know how much money you can get. Or even, I know that some people have asked, hey, is there an opportunity to fund college? And more than likely, but then again, I can't speak on behalf of your employers, but more than likely, there's always going to be an opportunity where someone's going to be like, yeah, I'm happy to pay for your college. Tell me what I need to do in order for you to do that. And maybe it's just cutting a check for the opportunities, especially if you made a good relationship with your employer. You never know what's going to happen, especially those mom and pop shops. Online scholarships are available, everything in between, it's always out there. So, Andrea, our representative who's talking tonight, will talk a little bit more on this. Right? These are the one big emphasis of here, which she'll touch on a little bit more about the others. But when you do search for scholarship opportunities, the big red flag is when they ask you, hey, can we have your credit card information to give you, just to hold onto your information so that we'll disperse you your scholarship money. That's a red flag, as in any other scam out there. So always find reputable sites, like I said, the university, your own local your local county specific area, your school, anything else, but don't commit to the ones that are fraud. And then as far as finding balance as a first-year college student, I know I often get this a lot from a lot of the students I talk to, and it always breaks my heart when I hear this. I'm worried that I'm not smart enough for college. You are smart enough for college. There's never being smart of anything. At the end of the day, the fact that you're making common sense decisions to help you kind of walk through that line of breaking, what does that mean for me as an adult? You always want to find that opportunity. Like I said, I was that student at one point. So for example, a lot of people, get scared of this, but when I took the ACTs as a senior, I took it 3 times. I was very disappointed with the ACT score I had, and as low as you can think. And so I was scared that I wasn't going to college, but at the end of the day, I knew myself. I was like, well, I'm getting good grades in high school, but why am I getting this ACT score? And this ACT score doesn't reflect who I am. And if you're one of those people, I'm there with you, because at the end of the day, you are who you are, and it's a matter of choosing the college that's the right fit for you, which is kind of what I mentioned earlier. And so Kent State University, based on the grades that I had in high school, worked out for my favor, because I'm a huge when it comes to test anxiety. I have so much anxiety when it comes to that end of things, and so they were able to recognize that. Here at Kent State University at Stark, we'll just take your ACT scores, put you in an assessment that's about 90 minutes, and then when you have that assessment, it's not to test you. It's not like the ACT where they put you in a room for 3 hours. It's really just 90 minutes, assesses you based on what you understand and know, and puts you in the right classes that make sense for you when you're able to go on to college. And it doesn't prolong your degree path, which is really nice. Academic resources are always available when it comes to being at a leverage these particular resources when you are doing campus visits. So if for whatever reason the college doesn't offer that, that's a red flag for me. Because if you can't get the resources to help you in class, like, this is always good information to know. Another thing that we hear all the time is, none of my friends are going to the same school. How do I make new friends at my new school? And I know that can be scary sometimes, especially if you're not staying local and you're hoping to go, outside or even overseas, whatever decision that you want to make. But at the end of the day, you're going to make friends as long as you put the effort into it, and also find people that are who you are. And what's nice about college is that you get to meet those people along the way. You get to meet your people, and they end up being lifelong friends, whether it be, getting into an organization or going to a class and having to be stuck with a partner sometimes, and they end up being your good friends. Because that happened to me, and I was just like, ooh, I don't know your name. But by the time, after the whole semester, we got to know each other, and I really got to, be lifelong friends with her. It's been great. And then kind of mention what I had mentioned earlier, getting involved. Those opportunities will always come out there to, find new people, really find people. I know a lot of people also establish clubs on campus, which is always really nice. Sometimes you just need like 20 signatures and boom, you have a club. And you can make your own club. So leadership opportunities come with that. You meet new people. It's great. And then, kind of mention it's a big resume builder. So you may be doing clubs right now, and that also gives you leadership boost, which is really nice. But if you think about it, when you go to a college and you find a club or an organization that you want to be a part of. When I was an undergrad, I got highly involved with a national organization, was able to promote it and be able to kind of move up in the ranks as far as being in an organization. And I think, those are opportunities to really build your resume and become who you want to be at the end of the day. And then that's pretty much it. I was kind of everywhere at some point, and hopefully you were able to take away some information. We also didn't want to take too much time because I know you all might want to take breaks before the financial aid night, but hopefully I've covered kind of the basis of what to do and what to get started. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. So I guess I'll just stop it from here. We have time between now until 6:15. Did you have any announcements over in the back there? Did you have any announcements?
We will take a short break, and I think that we're scheduled to start at 6:15 for the next part. So we're still waiting for our presenter. I don't see that.
Oh, she's right there.
Oh, hi, how are you? So she is here. We'll take a short break, and then we'll be back at 6:15 to talk about FAFSA and scholarship and all that good stuff. Okay?
One other thought before you all take a bathroom break. I have handouts if you want more information about Kent State University at Start. We have, our tuition prices, good information. Someone will message you, don't mind me. World-class experience if you want to see kind of a handout for that. Kind of touching on what I had mentioned earlier, this is our application process in a breakdown in a checklist. So if you want this, feel free to grab some. I have a handful of handouts you can take. And then anyone that's interested in coming to our campus preview, I also have a handout as well. But like I said, I'm available if anyone has any questions. Oh, what's up? Okay. 4-year tuition free.
So whatever you are whatever going into that, if you get that from all tuition guarantee.
Oh, tuition guarantee. Andrea, are you able to kind of touch on that?
I'm sorry.
So her question specifically is, what does our campus look like for a tuition guarantee?
So currently, once our freshman class enters, their tuition is locked in for their 4 years at either Kent State or at regional campus. Now, the thing with the regional campuses that confuses a lot of people, me included, is that we have separate pricing for lower division courses and upper division courses. The upper division courses are slightly higher, almost, I would say somewhere between $75 to $100 more per credit hour. Per year, freshmen at Student Start are paying about $3,200 a semester, whereas those upper division students who are full-time are paying right around $3,600 a semester. But they're locked into whatever the rate is for the year that they enter at any campus. I don't know about
with Kent State, or at least at the START campus specifically. With the Common App, when you look it up, there's an opportunity to kind of apply commonly throughout different universities that you might be interested in, or maybe on that list that is associated with the Common App. There's a fees associated with it. You just have to kind of take a look on what those fees are particularly. But basically, it's an application that students can fill out, and it just sends directly to the universities that they're interested in. But as far as like the follow-up to that, it would just kind of be based on the university's needs. So say, for example, even though we're not on the Common App, just to kind of touch on what I mean by that. So with an application, at least for us not being the Common App, we will need a transcript, we'll need ACT scores. And so it's a matter of just the student following up with the university, making sure that they're fully applied to that campus. But with the Common App, it just disperses to those universities that are associated with the Common App. Okay, well, let's all take a bathroom break. So Andrew can get set up, and then she'll get started from there. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, he's come in to come down, think about it.
No, just one.
For anyone that's technically still in the room, there's also copies of highlighted or representatives for presentations. If you want to follow along, we're up here. And we're
Go on down the line.
Don't even get it. Yeah, I mean, I just go down. Okay, guys, I think we're gonna get going into the next portion. Thank you so much for coming and presenting the College 101 piece. We're gonna talk more about the financial piece, filling out the FAFSA now. Before I kick it over to Ken Stark to kind of walk you through that process, I did want to mention a few Sandy Valley specific things, just so that the parents are aware. You know, everybody talks about scholarships and they want to know about scholarships. The bulk of where our kids kind of earn their money, I won't say the bulk, but on awards day, you will see senior after senior walking across the stage, getting all kinds of scholarship offers. Those are what we call our local scholarships. So those are the Sandy Valley specific local scholarships. Just so parents are aware, those usually come out, good rule of thumb is those come out around Valentine's Day, and they're due back by St. Patrick's Day. So those won't be out for a while, but that's kind of the general time frame. Please encourage your student, and we do post them on our website. I do need to do a plug for Sandy Valley Guidance website. It is on this paper. If you got one of the senior stuff papers, our link is at the top. Mr. White has like redone the whole thing. It's awesome. It's put like everything under the sun onto that website. So all of our scholarships are listed there as well. It's a really great starting point for you. Please don't think it's an exhaustive list though, because we don't always know about every scholarship. But anything that we get, we do try to post to the website. We throw it on the announcements. If we get something paper, we have a binder in our office. It's a gray scholarship binder. We encourage kids to come and flip through it maybe once a week. Mrs. Cannon, the counseling secretary, will make copies of anything that's in there, okay? But in regards to the local scholarships, please encourage your child to either stop by and pick up those paper copies when they come out, or get on the website and make sure that they're looking at every single one of those. We have some generous community partners. They offer a lot of dollars. Sometimes I don't have anybody apply for some scholarships, so that money goes right back. Sometimes I have one person apply. That's who wins the money, the one person that applies. So even if they think maybe that one doesn't really apply to me, or I don't want to write that essay, tell them to grab them all and fill them all out. Okay, their odds are pretty good that they're going to get something on awards day. So again, please check out that link there at the top, the Sandy Valley website. Mr. White was telling me what an amazing amount of work you put into it over the summer. So there's a lot of resources there for you as well. So White, think of anything I mentioned the website, I mentioned scholarships, local scholarships. Oh, real quick, two things, sorry, I always think of things off the top of my head. Two more specific scholarships that I always like to put a plug in for, or I guess they're loan programs as well. The Paul and Carol David Foundation is a Stark County-based scholarship site. A couple years ago, one of our students won the Paul and Carol David scholarship competition, and I want to say it was like a year. For 4 years. $7,500 a year for 4 years. So that person is, you know, doing pretty well for herself now. And that is all, that's Stark County. It scares kids off because it's a stack. They want to know, you know, they want to know your cat's name, they want to know your middle name, they want to know your, you know, whatever. They want to know everything about you, and you have to write an application essay, I believe, but it's worth it. So I encourage everyone to check that out. The other good kind of loan program that I always like to mention too is the Camp Student Loan Foundation. I think you might know this one too. I want to say it's either no interest or very, very low interest.
It's no interest.
No interest.
While they're in school.
Okay. So if you have like a gap at the end where you're just, I don't know how to come up with this money, that is a really great program for you. The application, I believe, is due June 1st, which kind of throws kids off. So you need to make sure that everything is in and done. They can't help you come after that June 1st deadline. So those are just two kind of the, I just kind of plug, they're really, really good programs. Okay. I'm going to turn it over now to the expert who will walk you through FAFSA and all the wonderful things. But if you have other questions, Mr. White and I are around. You can always email us. You can always, you know, call, whatever you need to do. But I will let them take it away.
All right, I have a very weird relationship with microphones, but I've been a little sick this week, so probably makes sense for me to use it. My name is Andrea Dale. I am also State at Start. We go out to the area high schools just to inform students and parents. I do see some students in the room. I'm really happy about that. But we just inform them about what you need to know about filling out the financial aid application and touch on some costs of, like determining costs of college, how it's gonna impact your family. Talk a little bit about financial aid philosophy, and then I'm gonna give you a little bit of a timeline for the FAFSA. So we'll go ahead and get started here. I always mess this up here. See? Always. Okay. So when you're talking about financial aid philosophy, I'm referring to the federal government. The federal government looks at the burden of college costs is on the family, but they are there with the federal financial aid programs to sort of fill in that gap. So when you are filling out the federal financial aid application, they are going to look at household income. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. Right now I'm going to tell you how to get started on filling out the FAFSA. Please feel free to make copies of any of the slides that I have up here. Just take a photo. There are some websites that are going to be important for you, and this next slide will show you one of them. So before filling out the FAFSA application, both one of the parents in the household and the student must create what's called an FSA ID. This is a username and password that serves as the legal signature on these documents, and they will stick with you forever. So someone asked me before the presentation, well, I have another child that's already in college, what do I do about that username and password? If you are the parent, you will use your username and password for each consecutive child that you have to fill out a FAFSA application for. So if you have one that started 2 years ago, you have one that starts this year, and then you have another one that 5 years from now, you're still going to use the same username and password because you don't have to repeat this process. If this is your first time filling out a FAFSA, however, you will need to create this username and password. Now, FAFSA, you will hear this term thrown around between now and the time the student graduates. It stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So I always mention that because a lot of websites are out there that try to scam you. They have you fill out all of the information. They will file your FAFSA, but before filing it, they're going to try to collect some money from you on a credit card. So if you're ever on a site like that, get out of there. You should always be on a .gov site. So some tips with this username and password. Maybe. See? Always do that. Both the student and the parent have to have a separate email address. For students in the room, I do not recommend that you use your high school email because you probably will not have access to that email once you leave Sandy Valley. So if you don't already have your own personal email account, like through Gmail or Yahoo, I would recommend that you create one before even doing this. But you can't use the same email address. That's a unique identifier, and if you try to do it, you're going to run into major problems with this. So parent, you use your separate email address. Student, you use your separate email address. The guidance from the federal aid programs is that the username and password should not be shared, even amongst family members. So I'm going to just move forward with that way of thinking. I'm pretty realistic. I see it happen all the time, but moving forward with my way of thinking, you are each creating your own, and you are not sharing that with each other. Definitely do not share that with any kind of officer at a school. I wouldn't recommend that you share that with a tax preparer, although some tax preparers will file FAFSAs for you. I just recommend that you create this username and password and either write it down, put it in your phone in your notes. You will need to access this year after year. Why use the same password for everything? It's not going to let you do that. It's going to make you change it every year. And it will not let you repeat one because if you've used it in the last 10 passwords, it will not allow you to repeat that. So One thing I recommend to students is if it is prompting you to change your password, just use the one you have and stick an exclamation point at the end. And then go down those character keys each time you change it. That might make it a little easier. The other thing with this FSA ID, it's really no different than signing up for a username and password for like a bank. I compare it to a bank rather than social media because it's a little more secure. They will be asking for social security numbers, so students make sure you're putting your social security number for you, and parents, you as well. They also have you choose 5 security questions. It's pretty easy because the first 3 they let you just choose from a drop-down. Here's my tips on that. These security questions are used to retrieve a password if you forget it. They are case sensitive. When you type in the answers, it just shows little dots. Anytime you see those little dots, there's always a little box that you can check off that says show text. I recommend that you do that for these questions. And I also recommend that you choose questions where the answer will absolutely never change. I had a student in the office the other day, he forgot his password, he was trying to retrieve it, and his one question was, what is your favorite album? Well, I mean, unless you're dead set that Michael Jackson Thriller is your all-time favorite album and has been ever since the dawn of time, then maybe you could use that. But he couldn't remember what he put. So I said to him, I said, well, the name of your first pet is never going to change. Your younger brother's middle name, that will never change, maybe. So just choose questions where the answers are never going to change. I don't recommend using answers that are more than 1 word. I don't recommend, one of the questions you could put is the street that you grew up on. Well, if you grew up on 37th Street, I don't really recommend that you put that, because are you going to remember if you put 37th as, you know, if you spelled everything out? Keep it simple, keep it a 1 word, and just move on. I spent a lot of time on that, but that's probably the thing that is the most frustrating, is when you're trying to retrieve a password and you can't remember the answer to your question. After both the student and the parent has their username and password, you're going to want to go to the FAFSA website. See? FAFSA.gov, FAFSA.gov. You don't have to put any W's in front of it, you can just type this in, it'll come up, and this is what the screen should look like. Right now, when you go in there are 2 FAFSA years available. It defaults to the 2020-2021 school year, which is the one that all of you in this room will want to fill out if your student is starting next fall. The 19-20 are for those students who started back in August. So don't click on that one, just do the 2020. You'll start here, click on the Start Here button, and then, it may ask, I think that's then where you choose the FAFSA, and then I think it asks, it says either I am the student or I am the parent. I recommend that the student clicks on I am the student and signs in with their username and password. That's the only time they would have to enter it the whole time completing the FAFSA. It starts with student information. So parents, if you're there helping, keep that in mind. Don't put answers to your questions under the student's information. It can cause some havoc down the line. But it's going to ask, it'll kind of have all the demographic information you submitted when you did the FSA ID, and then it's going to ask for the school information. You can put up to 10 different colleges where you want your information sent to. So at this point, some students haven't really pinned down that school that they're going to. Or they pinned down a school that they have their heart set on, some private school out in California. But parents, you may want to encourage them to maybe put something local too, because a lot of times students will change their mind come July. We actually get a big rush of people applying in July, and then that's when things get a little crazy, because everybody's just super stressed out and nervous. Excuse me. So after that, then it's going to ask for parent information. With parent information, it'll have all of your demographic information, and it is going to start with your finances. But if you guys came up here and grabbed the handouts, if you didn't, you can do so afterwards. You have a handout that I had up here, Who's My Parent on the FAFSA. There are hundreds of different types of households out there. There are some students who might live with a grandparent rather than a parent. If you look at that infograph, it'll help you pinpoint who goes on the FAFSA. Generally speaking, it's the parent, if the parents are divorced or they were never married, it's the parent that provides 51% or more of the student's financial well-being. Well, if you're in a household where you split child cares 50-50, I tell students, I'm like, well, you might want to go with a parent that provides your health insurance, if that's a question. And if there's ever a question, you know, you can always contact the financial aid office, and there are other resources that you have as well. And then there are some other unique situations, which if you have a question, you are in one of these unique situations, you can ask me at the end. After you determine which parent's on there, it's going to start asking for tax information. This is where people get freaked out. I'm going to put the wrong thing. And you know what? People used to do it all the time. The FAFSA has improved so much in the last 5 years, but I'm going to say more specifically in the last 3 years. They now have available this IRS data retrieval tool. What this is when the parent gets to the financial information, it'll ask, did you file taxes in 2018? And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. You will say either yes or will file or not going to file. If you choose will that I already filed, it'll then ask you, did you file head of household, married filing joint, married filing separate and single. If you filed married separate, you will not be able to use the data retrieval tool. But if you filed married joint, you will be able to, or single, or head of household. After you answer that question, a little tiny box appears and it says link to the IRS. I recommend that you click on that. It's going to take you out to the IRS's website, and it looks similar to this. It'll have you put your most recent address that the IRS has, and as long as they can match you in their system, you can click on the bottom where it says transfer now, and it will import all of your tax information into the appropriate spots on the FAFSA. This saved so many errors from happening. It's easier for you, it's done like that, you don't have to figure out what's what. Now, if you're in a situation where you have to enter it in manually, each little section has I think it's a little question mark button that you can click on, and it will tell you like, take line 42B, subtract line 36A, and then you'll be able to put that information in. So don't worry if you can't use this, it just does help reduce some of those errors. A lot of times people would put, they put their adjusted gross income, and then they would put their adjusted gross income also for taxes paid. So that creates an error. Any questions on this? Okay. The FAFSA also will ask for asset information for both the parent and the student. For the student, they may have some sort of a bond or something that should be included under the student. This slide right here explains what is considered an asset and what is not. The home where you live is not considered an asset. They don't expect you to sell your home to put your kid through school. Any kind of retirement savings plans that you may have, so 401k, 401b, 501k, any kind of an IRA that's for retirement purposes only, that does not need to be listed on the FAFSA. If the student has a 521 plan in their name that the parent created, that would be considered an asset of the parent. If the student has a 529 plan that grandma or grandpa started, that's not going to show up on the FAFSA. The 529 plan belongs to the person who started it, not the student. So the reason is because those plans can be transferred from student to student in the household. So parents, if you have a 529 plan, it will go under your asset information of the students. And that kind of benefits the student a little bit more, because anything that they expect is going to be used towards college expenses. If you have a small family business with 100 employees or less, that's not considered an asset either. Okay. Once you get in all the information, it's going to ask you to sign. And this sounds pretty stupid that I'm saying it, but please remember to hit the submit button. It happens all the time where I'll have a student in the office, they want to find out, they haven't heard anything about their financial aid, and we search and search and search and finally figure out that even though they both signed it, they forgot to hit submit. You'll know that you've submitted it when you get the confirmation page, which is on the screen here. The confirmation page has some useful information on it. I recommend that you either print it or save it to your computer. If you do this FAFSA on your phone, they do have an app. I would just make sure you kind of screenshot that confirmation page. It's helpful, number one, if you go to a school and the student forgot to send the FAFSA information there, we can take a look at that and say, oh, I can kind of guess what you're going to get in financial aid. It will show you right away over there on the other side. It'll show whether or not the student may qualify for the federal Pell Grant. That's usually the big thing that people are looking for. The federal Pell Grant is money that is gifted to the student that does not need to be repaid. It's a need-based program. Not every student will get that. Every student will have on their confirmation page that they may qualify for $5,500 in federal Stafford loans. I'm going to go into a little more detail about all of those, I think maybe next. No, not next. 2 more slides. Okay. So the FAFSA that you are completing, the 2020-2021 FAFSA, is based on tax information from 2018. If you filled out a FAFSA a few years ago, that wasn't the case. It only went back 1 tax year. But because the FAFSA just opened on Tuesday, so you guys can all do that now, they changed the open date of the FAFSA from January to October, and that was to help families determine, where the student's going a lot sooner. But because this tax year is not done, you can't use 2019 taxes. You will go back to 2018, and it will prompt you there, but I just want you to be aware you are using 2018 taxes for the 2021 FAFSA. And again, it opened up Tuesday, so I recommend this weekend you order a pizza, maybe get some wine for the parents, and sit down and have fun doing your FAFSA. Realistically, I would say it's the first time it'll probably take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to complete. Years coming up, after you do it year after year, which it does need to be completed every year, it's not going to take you that long because a lot of your information will already be in there. It should only take you maybe a half an hour, probably not. I've had people do them in 15 minutes once they're just renewing it. But because FAFSA is using a tax year from 2 years ago, a lot can happen in that time. I mean, a lot can happen between now and when the student starts school. Something can happen such as a divorce in the family, maybe unemployment happens. You may lose child support, so a loss of untaxed income. That may happen if you're receiving child support. Child turns 18, you're no longer getting it. If your household income has been impacted negatively in the last, since 2018, contact the financial aid office of whatever school the student decides to go to. There is a form that can be filled out, it's called special circumstance, and they can refigure the FAFSA so hopefully that student can maybe get more financial aid based on the change in household income. Any questions on that? Most of the time those special circumstance applications aren't going to be available until like April or May, so don't feel like you have to get in touch with the school now and get that started. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about different types of financial aid. I mentioned the Pell Grant. The Pell Grant is considered gift aid. Gift aid is financial aid that the student receives, and it's exactly as it sounds, it's a gift. It doesn't need to be repaid back. In the case of a grant, the student doesn't really need to do anything except fill out a FAFSA. And in the case of a scholarship, well, the student does have to apply for those. And I go into a lot of detail on the next slide about that. There are other grants other than the Pell Grant, but the Pell Grant's the big one. A student can receive up to $6,100 a year in Pell Grant money, and that is based on need. So it's going to be based on household income. There is an Ohio grant that students can use at an Ohio school. It is also based on the FAFSA information, but you're not going to see that on your confirmation page. The Ohio grant, though, you cannot use it at a community college or a regional campus. So for instance, if the student decides to go to Stark State, they're not going to receive the Ohio money. If they go to Kent State at Stark, they're not going to receive the Ohio grant money. If they go to Kent State, they will get the Ohio grant money. The reason is because at community colleges and regional campuses, the tuition is so much lower than it is at those main campuses. I'm pretty sure that the student can also use it at a private school in the state of Ohio. And I was just talking to a coworker today. She went to a school in Pennsylvania and she received a reduced amount of Ohio grant money. So that's also a possibility. The other type of aid is self-help aid. This would be aid where the student has to do something in order to receive this financial assistance. In the case of loans, the student has to pay those back. But there is another program available to students called work study. There is a big misconception about work study. The biggest misconception about it is that if my student gets awarded work study, that applies to their bill. That's not the case. What work study is it allows the student to get a job on campus, they go to work, they get a weekly paycheck, and the money that funds that paycheck comes from the federal government, and it's work study dollars. So if you see work study is awarded to a student, that is not going to take money off of their bill. That's going to put money in the student's pocket for expenses that they might have, books, gas to get to and from school. If they're living away from home, that can help pay for some food and that sort of thing. Okay, I really appreciate that Stephanie started off talking about scholarships. I talk to students all the time about scholarships. I coordinate the continuing student scholarships at Kent State Stark. So I work with our students who have gone there a year and then they're applying for scholarships just at our campus. But I do a lot of workshops, and I do workshops on scholarship searching and essay writing, just because in my years of doing this, I see a need for it. There are so many millions of dollars out there in scholarships that go unclaimed every single year. Now I'm talking at the national level, but hearing Stephanie say she has scholarships that are offered through Sandy Valley that people haven't even applied for, that's the first place you want to start. If you're a student, you want to start with these local scholarships because you're just competing with the people in your high school. Once you get to college, once you apply to college, many schools have what are called admission scholarships, and those are the scholarships that are given based on your high school GPA and ACT scores. And oftentimes you don't have to do anything except apply to that school. But if you're looking at, most of the times these would be like a donor scholarship. So someone in the community started a scholarship fund for a particular type of student. That's where you can get those extra dollars that are really going to reduce student debt. I mean, we all know that student debt is a crisis right now, and the best way to combat that is scholarship dollars. So many scholarships go unclaimed every year. I actually had to chase down a student this year to apply for one of our scholarships because they had no applicants. And I almost had to stand over them and say, hey, apply for the scholarship, you're going to get it. One of the other students I hounded about it didn't apply for it, and she was in my office about 2 weeks ago. She has about $700 on her bill she has to pay, and she didn't know how to do it. And I said, oh, you could have applied for that $500 scholarship I was hounding you about. So it takes time. It takes a little bit of savviness to get through the scholarship application. But if you start with those local scholarships, not only through Sandy Valley, if you grab the scholarship cards that I have up here on the back, you'll see, I think it says local resources. There's also a place called the Stark County Community Foundation. They manage that Paul and Carol David Scholarship. And that Paul and Carol David Scholarship, it's probably one of the best ones I've ever seen, because it is that $7,500 a year, renewable for 4 years. They give it to not only students who have financial need, they also give it to high achieving students. And then they also give it to those students who kind of fall in the middle. So it is worth the time and effort to get that kind of money. I always use the example when I'm talking to students, think about this. You spend 10 hours researching scholarships, finding ones that you qualify for, because you're going to come across many, many that you don't. Writing your essay, having someone else take a look at that essay, which I highly recommend. And I'll tell you why in a second. And then applying for these scholarships. And let's say you get awarded $1,000. So you spent 10 hours of time, you got a $1,000 scholarship, you just made $100 an hour. Well, I don't make $100 an hour. I'm willing to bet most of the students in this room don't make $100 an hour. So if you look at it that way, I used to work with a kid, and every time we would go out to eat or something, he'd be like, I have to work 4 hours to pay for this food. It drove me crazy. But if you think in that kind of way, it's definitely worth your time. Any do you students have a job anywhere? Where do you work? Oh, I don't know about Wendy's, but I would be willing to bet that they probably have some sort of scholarship. Where do you work? Like a local? Okay. So, last year on the same day, 2 students at different times came in. The first one handed me a check from their job, $2,500 scholarship. A couple hours later, another guy came in, handed me a check from the same place for $3,000. The place was McDonald's, and they worked at different McDonald's. They weren't at the same McDonald's, but I was completely floored. And I'm not saying go rush out and get a job at McDonald's. I know that not everybody wants to do that. But what my point is that the money is out there. You just have to find out where it is. Parents, I would find out from your places of employment to see if they may have scholarships available. They may have that available. Student has to write a 300-word essay, and chances are there probably are a lot of other people's kids applying for that. I was just at another high school. I loved this dad. He was awesome. I think he was planted there, because when I was doing my spiel, he raised his hand and he said, I just want to tell you, I was one of those parents where people told me, oh, you're not going to get anything for FAFSA, don't even waste your time. And he said, and my daughter missed out on 4 years of scholarships because the scholarships she wanted all required that the FAFSA was completed. So even if you think you're in that situation where, oh, we're just going to get loans, why should I bother? If you're applying for scholarships, have that FAFSA on file, because there are many of them that look at it. Not all of them, but there are many of them that do. And not all scholarships are academically based. So if you're not up there at the 4.0, that was my thing. I'm like, I've never had a 4.0, I'm never going to get a scholarship. That's not true. I've seen them as low as a 2.0. So just take the time, do that. What was I going to tell you? I said I was going to tell you guys about it, and I forgot. It's called the essay. So, thank you. Always have another person take a look at your essay. Preferably, maybe a teacher that you get along with. If your parent's really good at kind of editing stuff. I had a student, he wrote a really great essay this year, and he was telling me that when he decided to go to collage, that he knew Kent State was the collage for him, because he knew that Kent State was a great collage, everybody knew in the country, blah, blah, blah. And I'm reading this thing, and every place where it should have said college, it said collage. Spell check is not going to find that, because it's a word and it was spelled right, and I'm like, what he had to do was take it in, we have a writing center, all you have to do is take it in there, and they'd be like, but heck, even if a parent or somebody read that, that would have been very clear. And I had to fault him on that. You know, one little mistake here and there isn't going to hurt you, but something like that was consistent throughout the essay is. So it's really important to have someone else take a look at those essays, and don't use the same essay. If you're writing an essay, make sure that you're answering the prompt. I can always tell when this is like a kind of a stock essay that the student wrote, and then they submitted it to each scholarship. The other thing, put the name of the scholarship you're applying for in your essay. Someone took the time to donate that money, so at least just mention their name. Okay. Parents, your role is just to encourage, however you see fit, that the student apply for scholarships. I have several students every year that they don't have to pay anything because they have so much in scholarships, and sometimes we're giving them money back. So it's out there, you just gotta do the work. Oh, the other place that parent was telling me is if your parent's part of a union, a lot of unions will have scholarships available for children of union members, so take a look at that. He said he sits on a board, and they didn't have anybody apply last year. Okay, so that was the free money. I'm going to talk a little bit about loans. I had a really frustrating conversation today with a student about loans. Loans are there to help when there's nothing else there to help you with. I don't think that you can look in many different places and not know about a student loan crisis. Now, the federal loans are probably the best loans you're going to find. That's that $5,500 of guaranteed federal Stafford loans that a student will be offered. Just because the student is offered, it doesn't mean it goes through. And if the student just needs $500 of that, that's acceptable too. You don't have to take out the full amount. But the federal direct Stafford loans, these are loans that the student does not have to pay on while they're in school. They have to be attending at least 6 credit or more fall and spring semesters, not summer. And as long as they do that, they won't have to pay on those loans. But once the student stops attending, that's going to start the 6-month grace period. So the intention is these loans go into repayment at graduation. Students sometimes like to take a semester off and, I don't know, go over to Europe, which if you want to do that as study abroad, and then your loans stay in deferment. But they have a fixed interest rate. It's a pretty low rate, the highest I have ever seen it in my time, well, except when I was a student, was 5%, and that was last year. It has gone down from last year. The current year is up here, the 4.53%. That's the 19-20 year. Congress reviews it every year, and they usually come out sometime in June what the next year rate will be. So hopefully we'll see that trend of it going back down. There are 2 different types though. There is the subsidized loan, and then there is an unsubsidized loan. The subsidized loan is considered need-based, and so not every student will get the subsidized loan. That loan is interest-free while the student's in school. The interest will start to accrue after it goes into repayment. The unsubsidized loan, however, the interest starts to accrue at origination. So every day that the student's in school, the interest is building. The nice thing about these loans is you can pay on the interest only if you want. You don't have to pay anything if you can't, but they can also be paid off early and there's not any kind of a penalty. Any questions on these? Like I said, they max it out at $5,500 for the year, so that's $2,750 per semester that the student gets. Don't worry, parents, you have the opportunity to take out a loan as well. Federal government has what's called a Parent Plus loan available if the student needs additional assistance and the parent wants to help pay for that, and it's with this Parent Plus loan. As you can see, it has a higher interest rate, but it is a fixed rate. It's at 7.79% that did go down slightly from last year. This loan is a credit-based loan, so the parent does have to apply for the loan, and it's a credit-based decision. There's a potential that this parent's denied based on credit, and if that's the situation, the student still needs that extra assistance, so the federal government will allow the student to borrow $4,000 more of an unsubsidized loan. Parent Plus loan does accrue interest while the student's in school, and you can start payments right away on that. And then the next type is a private loan. These, I think, I don't want to say they're the worst loans, but these are probably the least desirable. These would be a private loan through a private institution. I say they're less desirable because they typically will have a variable rate. So if you are shopping around at a private loan, I recommend that you look at a couple different places before going with one of those loans. Most college financial aid websites will have an area where you can kind of compare the different loan programs side by side from various banks, credit unions. But that Canton Student Loan Foundation, their loan is a private loan as well, and that one's a really good loan. Like I said, it has a 5% interest rate. They have like a 99.9% repayment rate, which is astounding. But they go through a very strict process where the student applies, they interview the student, and if the student's approved, they can borrow up to $3,000 for 4 years. And that's at any point in their college career that they can do that. So if you are looking at a private loan, I would look around. I know that North Canton and Massillon also have one too, but I'm not sure of the details on their loan program. Okay. So in the upcoming months, you're going to start trying to figure out exactly what do we have to pay for, how am I going to figure that out. You can Google what's called a cost of attendance. It's a specific term, it's a financial aid term. The cost of attendance is used by financial aid because we cannot award more financial aid to a student than what the cost of attendance is. And I'll kind of go into that a little bit more on the next slide. But what the cost of attendance is made up of are direct costs and indirect costs. The direct costs are going to be what's going to show up on the student's bill. So, if the student is attending a school and living on campus, their room and board and their tuition and fees will show up on the tuition bill. That's the direct cost. But, you know, if you're going to college, there's other costs involved that aren't going directly to the school. You need to buy books. You might need to buy a computer. If you're commuting, you're going to need gas to get back and forth, car insurance. So those would be the indirect costs. And so every single school who's using Title IV-A, which is the federal aid, has a published cost of attendance. You can find this out for any school. I'm going to show you what it looks like on the next slide. So we use our cost of attendance because it's readily handy to me. I have little charts all over my office. The cost of attendance at Kent State at Stark, this is for the year, so this is not per semester. Schools bill per semester, but financial aid does everything by the year. It's confusing, trust me, I get it. So a cost of attendance, you can see the tuition and fees at Kent State at Stark, it's right around $6,200 for the year, so that's what, $3,100 a semester. We do have room and board on there, but our students are not living on campus, they're commuting from home. But parents, you still are paying bills to provide for that student. So that's why we figure room and board at a commuter campus like ours. Our direct cost would be just that tuition and fees. But if you were up at the Kent campus, it would be the tuition and fees and the room and board. The rest of those costs, books, transportation, miscellaneous personal costs, those are your indirect costs. But you're going to incur those. I always tell students those. Miscellaneous ones, that's for your toothpaste, your deodorant, your away at school. I also included on, you can see that number there, 14,000. Does that seem high? Oh, okay. I have a dip when I saw it the first time. We publish these on award letters, and most schools will put their cost of attendance on there. And then parents see their financial aid award letter and they see this huge number at the bottom and they have a heart attack. Don't do that because it's an inflated number. So the example I use, and I'm always bad at this because I was an English major and I'm terrible at doing math in my head. So I'm going to use our cost of attendance, $14,500. And we're going to say that the student, I'm just going to keep it simple for me, uses, okay, $5,500, so that leaves what, $8,000 that they have to pay? Or I mean, $8,000 that they have to come up with within this need. So let's say the parent applies for a Parent Plus loan and it gets approved for $20,000. We can't give you that loan for $20,000. We can only give it to you for $8,000 because we can't go above that cost of attendance. So it's a number used by financial aid that we can't exceed. We also put Kent campus on there. That would be typical of a four-year school in Ohio. Ohio State might be a little bit more. I heard Bowling Green was a lot lower, which surprised me. And then a private school in the state of Ohio, College of Worcester. I just Googled cost of attendance, College of Worcester, that's the number I got. I went to Kent's website and got theirs as well. So just to give you an idea of what those are. Now, you can compare schools and try to figure out exactly how far your financial aid is going to go. If you take the financial aid, which would include any, that $5,500 if the student's going to use loans, any kind of grant money and scholarship money, subtract it from the cost of attendance, and you can compare different schools. There is, and I don't have a slide for this, I don't know why we took it off, but there is a tool available through College Board. It's called the Net Price Calculator. It will allow you to enter in cost of attendance from, I think, like 3 different schools, and you can compare them side by side. So if you're interested in that, take a look at College Board. Okay, I'm getting close to the end, guys. So, October to December. This is a crucial time period for college. You want to get your FAFSA done. Most schools have what's called a priority deadline for FAFSA and applications. So to be considered for those freshman scholarships, Most schools have what's called a priority deadline, and that usually falls somewhere between December and March. I know at most of the four-year public universities in Ohio, it's probably December 1st because they want you to commit as early as possible. So I recommend that you get that FAFSA done. I would say get it done before Thanksgiving. That's an easy time to have that done by. College applications, get those out now. After the school receives the college applications and the FAFSA information, they'll start sending out college award letters. You're not going to get a financial aid award letter unless you're admitted to that school, or at least apply to that school. So if you put them on your FAFSA, but you didn't apply to that school, you probably won't get one of those award letters. Sometime between January and March, that's when you're gonna get those. You're gonna get your acceptance letters. It's gonna tell you your next steps. And then usually sometime between March, April, May, you're gonna schedule your college orientation where you go to the campus, get to know it a little better, register for your classes. Sometime in July usually is when the tuition and room and board bill will come out. Please be aware of deadlines. Tuition deadlines seem to come earlier and earlier every year. I think ours was August 2nd this year, and classes started on August 22nd. So it's several weeks before classes start. Just make sure that you know when that is, especially if you are going to be requesting money from like a 529 plan. Give yourself enough time to get that done. What a lot of schools will do is they will drop schedules if they don't see any kind of payment arrangement made. And that would be like any pending financial aid or scholarships, anything like that. I think that's it. The only other thing I'm going to mention is I did have a flyer out here. So when everything I said to you scared you about filling out the FAFSA, every year we host a FAFSA workshop. It's always on a beautiful November morning when it's raining and sleeting and gross, although I don't know, after the week we've had, I might be totally wrong on that. I hope not. But it's kind of an open session. You don't have to RSVP. You don't have to be there right at 9. But give yourself at least an hour if you're coming, and bring your 2018 tax information and any kind of asset information. And we're just there to help you, kind of be your cheerleader, be your moral support, answer some weird questions if you have a strange situation. And if you can make it to ours on November 23rd, check out some of the other local schools. They may be hosting them as well. I don't know, is this at all close to Kent State at Tusk at all? Is it? They may be hosting one as well, and I know Stark State always hosts a workshop as well. So just check out those dates if you can't make this. I think, like I said, I feel like they've made the FAFSA so much easier and user-friendly. You might not need this, but if you do, we're there. Yes?
True or false, I don't know, like, faster you do FAFSA, you get more money.
Not from FAFSA. So she asks, the sooner you do it, do you get more money? No. As a matter of fact, I still have people who haven't done it for this year that are going to come in and try to do it in November. I mean in April. I'm going to have that. That's not going to determine how much money they get from the federal aid programs, but it can determine how much money they get from the school itself. So one of the other grant programs I did fail to mention, it's called the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, FSEOG. That's a bucket of money that all the schools get that they divvy out however they want, and that's part of that priority deadline. So anybody who applies after that, they're absolutely not getting it. But it's usually a really small amount, like maybe $800 for the year.
You mentioned about parents who is being the main on the FAFSA.
If the biological parents aren't married, or yeah, but if you're married, you're both on there, but only one parent needs to sign.
So it doesn't really matter.
No, both. All of your information is coming in here. Yeah. Those are good questions. Anything else? Who's done a FAFSA before? Ah, okay, that's pretty good. All right. So is it scary? Oh, she's not answering. Uh-oh. Well, yes, that's how it was when I was in school. So. All right. Well, I'll stick around if you have any questions you want to come up and ask me, if you didn't get any handouts. But thank you all for coming.